The wolf paces the same 50-yard stretch of its enclosure for the 3,000th time this month, while somewhere in a Manhattan high-rise, a man walks the same route from his kitchen to his desk for the 3,000th time this year. Which one is truly caged? You'd think the answer is obvious. Animals run free, humans build prisons of spreadsheets and mortgages and alarm clocks. That's the fantasy anyway. The noble lion roaming the savannah while you rot in a cubicle. But spend 10 minutes watching actual wild animals, and something disturbing emerges. That wolf in the wild, it doesn't wander freely. It patrols the exact same territorial boundaries every single day, dictated by invisible borders drawn in scent markers and the threat of death from neighboring packs. Miss one patrol and you might lose a quarter of your territory by dawn. A wild deer spends 16 hours a day eating, not because it loves grazing, because it has to. Its entire existence is a desperate calculus of calories in versus calories burned, a biological treadmill it can never step off. Pause to enjoy a sunset. That's the moment the mountain lion strikes. The deer doesn't choose its daily route based on scenic beauty or personal growth. It moves where the food is, along paths etched by 1,000 generations of hoofprints, following the same loop until something kills it. Here's what nobody tells you about animal freedom. A golden eagle can soar across miles of open sky, but it can't choose not to hunt. Its metabolism demands a specific caloric intake. Miss that number 3 days running, and it starts cannibalizing its own muscle tissue. The eagle is free to fly anywhere within its hunting range, but that range is determined by prey density, and the eagle didn't pick its prey. Evolution picked it 3 million years ago. The eagle hunts rabbits because its beak and talons are shaped for rabbits, not because it weighed the options and decided rabbits aligned with its values. You can quit your job tomorrow. The eagle cannot quit being an eagle. Now think about a house cat, domesticated for 10,000 years, fed from a bag, sleeping 20 hours a day. By every measure, that cat has less freedom than its wildcat ancestors. Yet the house cat will live 15 years on average. The feral cat, 3 to 5 years if it's lucky. Freedom comes with a price tag written in blood and starvation and infected wounds. The wildcat is free to hunt, free to fight, free to starve when the mice disappear. The house cat traded that freedom for safety, regular meals, and a warm lap. Ask yourself honestly, which made the smarter deal? But let's dig deeper into what freedom actually means. A salmon swims 3,000 miles upstream to spawn in the exact gravel bed where it was born, then dies immediately. That's not a tradition or a lifestyle choice. That's genetic code written in its cells before it was conceived. The salmon experiences an overwhelming compulsion to swim upstream, a biological imperative it cannot question or resist. If you put obstacles in its path, it will literally beat itself to death trying to continue. Watch footage of salmon leaping up waterfalls, slamming into rocks, breaking their bodies to move another 3 feet upstream. That's not determination. That's programming. Compare that to a human who feels compelled to check their phone every 5 minutes. At least the human knows they're trapped. At least they can download an app blocker, throw the phone in a drawer, move to a cabin in Montana. The salmon gets no app blocker. The salmon gets no choice. It swims, or it experiences an existential agony that makes human anxiety look like a mild preference. Here's the twist that breaks the whole question open. Humans are the only animals that can be unhappy about their level of freedom. A lion in a zoo might pace, might show signs of stress, but it doesn't lie awake at night thinking, I should be in the Serengeti, this isn't the life I was meant to live. It experiences its current conditions. That's it. No comparison to an imagined alternative, no existential crisis about unrealized potential. You, though. You can be sitting in total physical comfort with food and shelter and safety and still feel imprisoned because you're comparing your life to an idea. The idea of what you could be doing. The idea of who you should be. The idea of freedom itself. You've created a mental cage more sophisticated than any zoo enclosure, built, from Instagram posts and cultural narratives and the gap between your daily reality and your imagined ideal life. A wild horse runs with its herd across open plains, and that looks like pure freedom until you learn about the dominance hierarchy. That horse's position in the herd determines when it eats, where it stands, whether it breeds. Step out of line and you get kicked, bitten, driven to the edges where the predators hunt. The horse didn't choose its rank. It was determined by genetics, by the mother's status, by 1,000 dominance contests that started the day it was born. The horse at the bottom of the hierarchy doesn't plot revolution, doesn't dream of equality, doesn't write manifestos about horse rights. It accepts its position because it has no framework for imagining alternatives. That's either the ultimate freedom or the ultimate prison, depending on how you look at it. Free from the torture of imagined alternatives, but trapped in a reality you can't conceptualize escaping. Meanwhile, a human born into poverty can learn about wealth, imagine it, work toward it, maybe achieve it. Born into a dictatorship? You can learn about democracy, risk your life fighting for it, potentially change the entire system. You have conceptual freedom, the ability to imagine and work toward conditions that don't currently exist. No other animal has that. But that same conceptual freedom means you can be miserable in objectively good conditions because you're haunted by the ghost of what might have been. Let's talk about the elephant. Scientists have proven elephants mourn their dead, show signs of PTSD, remember injuries for decades. An elephant in captivity might pace and sway in patterns that look disturbingly like human depression. That suggests some level of awareness about confinement. But does the elephant think, I should be in Africa? Does it conceptualize the abstract idea of its natural habitat as a place it has a right to be? Or does it just experience a generalized distress, a biological feedback loop that says something is wrong, without the cognitive framework to understand what or why? The terrifying possibility is that greater intelligence brings greater suffering. The smarter you are, the more you can imagine, the more ways you can feel trapped. A jellyfish floating in the ocean responds to stimuli. It doesn't choose its direction, doesn't plan its route, doesn't want anything beyond its immediate biological imperatives. Is the jellyfish free? It's certainly not trapped by anxiety about the future or regret about the past. It exists in a perfect present tense, responding to its environment with zero existential baggage. You can't go back to being a jellyfish. Your brain won't let you. You're cursed with imagination and memory and the ability to mentally time travel to futures that might never happen and pasts you can't change. The jellyfish is free from that curse, but it's also free from music and love and the satisfaction of learning something difficult and the taste of really good coffee. Is that freedom, or is that just being too simple to know you're limited? Now consider the ant. A single ant is nearly mindless, following pheromone trails laid down by other ants, executing simple algorithms. But the colony? The colony shows emergent intelligence. It makes decisions no individual ant understands. The ant doesn't know it's building a colony. It responds to local chemical signals. That's it. The ant isn't free, but it's also not trapped, because it lacks the consciousness to conceptualize either state. It's a biological robot running code, written over 100 million years of evolution. Is that more free than a human who can choose their own code, but often doesn't know how? Here's where it gets really uncomfortable. How much of your behavior is actually chosen? You think you decide what to eat for breakfast, but marketing has shaped your preferences since childhood. You think you choose your career, but family expectations and economic pressures and the accident of what opportunities appeared when funneled you into a narrow path. You think you choose your opinions, but you arrived at most of them by absorbing the views of people around you, which they absorbed from people around them, a chain of unexamined assumptions going back generations. A bear in the woods follows its instincts. You follow yours too, except yours are coded in culture instead of genetics. The bear can't resist the instinct to fatten up before winter. Can you resist the instinct to check what people think of your social media posts? To seek status? To avoid embarrassment? To fit in? You have more freedom than the bear in theory. But in practice, you're running your own programmed routes, just like that wolf pacing its territory. The difference is awareness. You can catch yourself running the program and maybe, just maybe, choose to run a different one. The bear can't. That ability to observe your own behavior and potentially change it, that's the weird paradox of human freedom. You're simultaneously more trapped and more free than any animal, trapped by imagination and social conditioning and existential awareness. Free because you can, at least in principle, hack your own programming. But here's the final twist. Most animals that look free are actually desperately struggling to survive. The majestic wild elephant you imagine roaming freely? It's walking 30 miles today, searching for water sources that are disappearing due to drought. It's watching for poachers. It's dealing with injuries that would be easily treated in captivity, but will likely get infected and kill it in the wild. It's watching its calves die because there's not enough food. Freedom in the wild is often just freedom to suffer and die in harder ways. Humans created civilization specifically to escape that bargain. We built walls to keep out predators, planted crops so we wouldn't starve when the herds migrated, invented medicine so infections wouldn't kill us. Every brick in your house is a small reduction in freedom and a large increase in survival probability. You traded the freedom to roam anywhere for the security of a locked door. You traded the freedom to eat whatever you can kill for the safety of inspected food. You traded the freedom to do whatever you want for the protection of laws that also stop others from doing whatever they want to you. The question isn't whether animals live more freely than humans. It's whether freedom matters more than the things we traded it for, and whether the freedom we imagine animals having is even real or just a projection of our own yearning for a simpler existence we'd actually hate if we experienced it. That wolf is still pacing its enclosure. The man is still walking from his kitchen to his desk. But now you know something they might not. The enclosure was always invisible. The walls were always negotiable. The route was always chosen, even when it felt mandatory. Freedom isn't an amount of space or a lack of obligations. It's what happens in the gap between stimulus and response, in the moment you realize you're running a program and you can question the code. The wolf can't do that. The man can. Whether he will is a different question entirely. The cage isn't what's around you. It's whether you know you hold the key.